Welcome to the Wealth Tech Insider. This is a podcast about wealth and technology, what's changing, what's getting overcomplicated, and what actually matters once the noise dies down. We talk about real decisions in wealth tech, the tools, the trade-offs, and the human side of trying to make change stick. If you're curious about where this space is heading, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wealth Tech Insider. I'm your host, Danni Legrand, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Peter Warren. Hey, Peter, how are you doing? Peter, that was formal, wasn't it?
Am I in
Sorry,
trouble?
Pete. Well, yes, let's talk about this latest code in capital.
Trouble's brewing.
Did you get?
Well, I thought you guys might cancel me. No, I didn't get cancelled. And I've had more DMs on this week's email blog than any other one before. And I get a lot. Like, I do get a lot of people responding directly, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
But this one actually created a lot of feedback.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I was reading it on Friday morning with my coffee. So let's just I'll just give a little bit of an intro to this one. The start begins. As a middle-aged man, I'm playing with fire writing this. If my LinkedIn status suddenly changes to open to work, you know this didn't go well. So the title of this Code in Capital, for everyone who hasn't subscribed, Pete sends this out every Friday, and there's always interesting things that he's commenting on from a technology perspective and also the industry more broadly. This one is titled, "Why is no one naming their AI Trevor?" How did you come
This
up
one
with this?
came from Casper. So I think, you guys sort of sat through, you always see through these demos, right, of AI solutions. We watch a lot online, and oh God, there's just so many startups now in this space, not just in wealth tech, but just everywhere, right? And there was just a bit of Slack chatter, which is our internal messaging channel. And I think Casper was saying, has anyone noticed why they keep calling this AI she? And why do they give it a name?
Mm-hmm.
And Casper's probably the most... I call him, he's a very logical thinker, Casper, and
Mm-hmm.
I always value his perspective. And I thought, holy shit, he's right.
Yeah.
And so I did a bit of just desktop research, did a bit of Perplexity research, and it's really common. About 80 or 90% of AI agents are given a female name by their software founders, who 90% of whom are male. And I thought, this is interesting. So as I dug a bit deeper, I just went down a bit of a rabbit hole into the genderfication of software.
Yeah. And this isn't an attack on AI or the way things are designed, but I think it's probably a really thoughtful piece to your point. What is happening here? Because you're right, like we've got Siri and Alexa. They've been around for a long time, but then we've got the agents sitting within software now. So Ava and Sophie and Emily and
Emma.
Emma, yeah. But interestingly, you pointed out one of the global providers has got Emma as an assistant,
Yeah,
Erin or
so there
somebody
was
else as a power planet, but Colin, who was
one was
the
compliance.
compliance.
I thought Colin was in accounts, I think was what I wrote. Colin from accounts. Great TV show.
Yeah.
No, that's actually what really tipped me over the edge, was actually when it wasn't just about naming, a broad name for an AI solution, giving it a nice female name. And look, I should say this wasn't in the newsletter, but this is not uncharted territory. So Steve Jobs famously called one of his visionary next-gen computer Lisa. Lisa was the name he called, and that was his name of his daughter. And there's a whole, you can watch the movie, talks all about it. So, it is not uncommon for men in particular to give items, things they love, female names, like their cars. I made a movie reference to Gone in 60 Seconds. Very good Nicolas Cage movie. Should have got an Academy Award, but didn't. And so he called his Holy Grail car, which was a Shelby Mustang, Ellen. And what they did in that movie is they went and stole, all these cars, and they gave every single car a female name. So this happens, boats, all that kind of stuff. But I thought, gee, at what point have we started giving software female names? And I suppose back to the other example, we've given that particular software vendor, who I don't think has any ill intentions. I think it's just all subconscious stuff, right? People just don't think about. But to give the assistive administrative type functions a female name, but then to give the compliance agent a man's name, an old man's name, as it were, tells a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, well, we don't really, I've been racist, obviously, in your newsletter, but we don't call X-Plan Xavier. I don't know.
Yeah, it's best guess. That's a good one, actually.
We don't call Advisor Logic, uh, Aaron. I don't know. We're not giving our CRMs, our traditional CRMs names. I don't think. Maybe we are. I don't know. Possibly. I don't think we do normally. But this is obviously AI, and I think this is the relationship side of things, and the difference between. I was talking to you guys about this morning. We're having to think differently about the way we deliver our AI solutions. It's just such a different way of talking about and delivering solutions when it comes to AI versus delivering solutions when it comes to traditional tech that we're used to. We've got to think about it in a completely different way because they are LLMs. So, yeah.
So clearly, I'm a man, I identify as a man, and you're a woman. How did you feel when you read it? And do you think software vendors need to change their thinking on gentrification of AI bots?
We could really go down a rabbit hole here. When I read it, I was like, wow, it's that is, the first thing that probably comes to a lot of women's minds, not speaking for all women, but maybe, the patriarchy. Who are the people giving these AI tools their names? Is it mostly male? I think you referenced that it was 80% men that work
Yep.
in Silicon Valley.
In these startups are mostly men. Yep,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, and they're giving them these female roles. So again, even artificial intelligence, women have I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, but we're still relegating women to these nurturing, supportive assistant type roles, where the men are getting these more compliance, more managerial type roles when it comes to AI as well. Are we
Yeah.
quiet now?
I look, I think, and I think I touched on it in the article, but there's obviously thousands of years of programming into our instincts about the hunter gatherer lifestyle we used to have and different roles between the genders, and that's all well documented. But it does play into our subconscious decisions, and I guess there's probably two elements. So there's one element on reflection that I didn't put in the article that I probably wish I had, was that you mentioned Siri and Alexa and Google, Gemini, these things. Like, we give those bots names because we're going to refer to them via voice. So voice is becoming a bigger piece of the equation for some software with voice agents, right? Voice bots that we can engage with software and talk to it. And so perhaps software vendors are thinking, well, if I give it an easy to pronounce lady's name, it'll be easier for that bot to identify itself, to know what it's been called upon, and make the user more comfortable to talk to it, because it is still a strange thing to think that we talk to a computer.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe there's an element there that I was probably missing. But I think the real thing I wanted to call on was not the gentrification, not whether it's man or woman or whatever the case is, but the fact is, by giving our AI software a human name, and potentially a name that, my niece, I have an Ava who's my niece and I love her, and, I'm sure you have daughters' names, and I'm sure there will be a Zara and there'll be a Grace Spot somewhere going around. You instantly create a relationship or a familiarity with that name. And are we more likely to potentially be trusting of those agents and bots because we have given it some human qualities, and more trusting than we should be?
Because I guess we can try and forgive Sophie over forgiving System Error 409.
Yeah, command prompts, whatever. People are quite happy to yell at their Excel. They're quite happy to yell at their X-Plan. They're quite happy to yell at their CRM. But they're probably less likely to yell at poor old Sophie on the chatbot. And particularly as these developers, and I think it's marketing, frankly, are giving these agents tone and give you the ability to give it human-like characteristics in how it responds and how it engages with you, even the way it greets you. And I just think it's an interesting thing for software vendors to start considering, and for users to be really aware of, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that too, I guess why does this matter really? I mean, it's thought provoking. I think it's just an interesting thought provoking piece, but also, if we start referring to, she gave me this paragraph in this scope of advice, and she said to do this, and these were her recommendations, or whatever the case might be, we're really assigning a human-like way of dealing with these things that are doing things for our firms. So are we then going to overtrust those outputs that are coming out potentially? That might be the risk, because again, out there, those outputs are super confident, all of those sorts of things. as we sort of start to get a lot more comfortable in these relationships that we're having with our AIs, are we, is this going to become a risk, especially when it comes to, the stuff that we deal with in our industry from a regulatory perspective?
I think so. I just think naming our AI solution for no damn reason other than a bit of flashy marketing
Mm.
artificially builds trust faster than it should with a software platform. And so I think we're less likely to question things. And I just think it's dangerous in a world where we still know that has a habit of getting things wrong. And even when it gets it wrong, it always says, "Oh, yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about that." It almost excuses itself. It's a very slick employee. That's
Hmm.
Sophie. She's crafty. She knows how to.
She knows what to do, doesn't she? She's politically savvy.
So I guess I just wrote it, and it was much about even for us. And we were talking about our technology roadmap this morning a little bit. And I think we have to be anyone that produces software, I think, has to be really mindful of this. And I'm not going to presume to have all the answers on this stuff, but I think the gentrification is a really interesting thing. I think that people are underestimating that, and the evidence is suggesting that females. I'll put some data in here. So female usage of AI, whilst was lagging behind men 12 or 18 months ago, is rapidly catching up. So women using AI tools has rapidly accelerated. And so it's my hope that all the men, geeks, building these large language models will be more mindful that their users are both genders and how they think about tuning these models. And I didn't put this in the blog, but I'm going to say it now. I have a sense that the flattering nature of AI, that it puffs up our egos, it encourages us, it never tells us it's wrong, was a deliberate design decision because they knew there was going to be more men using these solutions initially than women.
But it got quite sycophantic, didn't it? It wasn't always that way. There was a release of ChatGPT, I can't remember which one it was, where it was noticeably, Danny, that's such an insightful question you just asked. How can you be so intelligent? It really butters you up, and you're like, oh, so of course, you start to form these connections
Yeah,
with it because it's telling you, you know, really appeals to, the narcissists out of us out there, I think.
men are more prone to suffering from misguided flattery and misinterpreting flattery for what it maybe means to be.
Mm.
I know my lived experience at home. If I give my wife Catherine a compliment, she's always like, "What do you mean by that? What?" And it's like, "Hey, it's just a compliment," but because there's a self-doubting nature of those things, and I would imagine that men, and we've even had feedback with our customers, Danny, like women tend to respond a lot better to fact-based factual outputs than
Hmm.
men, and less to persuasion, and so there's just a lot of interesting stuff going on here. So I think there's two elements that could play out. I think some of the large language models, they will be able to determine, obviously, they will know whether you're a male or a female. That's the
Yeah.
first thing. So ChatGPT, which is increasingly looking like it's going to be almost a consumer product for the future. Hello, advertising. I believe that's starting now. I actually cancelled my ChatGPT. I'll tell you that.
No,
I
really?
cancelled it. I've deleted it. Deleted my
Wow.
account. Deleted everything. I've wiped it.
Oh, so what?
I wasn't using it that much. Was using more Claude for work, and I was actually using Perplexity more for my personal life, using it like Google. And I just don't trust that company. I
Yeah.
don't trust ChatGPT. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I think it knows enough about me already. So I was quite happy to delete my account.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Anyway, back to what I was going to say. I just think they are going to start fine tuning the models based on gender, if they're not already.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because, when they want us to, we are having these relationships with them. We need them to be, people that bots we can have relationships with. I did love, sorry, back to that graph you put in the Code and Capital about ChatGPT usage shifting to gender parity.
Mm.
So it kind of like we can't share this graph here at the moment, but if I was to describe it, it's like, um, the earlier users were mostly males. So
Yeah.
just think of a Ferrari speeding down the highway. The girls were in the Toyota Corolla, just checking things out. And now Yeah, now it's like the Ferraris might have crashed a little bit along the way, potentially. Um, some people
I
have
feel
had
like this is a
existential
very sexist
crises.
analogy, Danny. Uh,
God, I'm going to get cancelled.
no, but yeah, so female usage of ChatGPT has actually taken over. So it's
Yeah,
actually just, I think that's population parity though, because I think there are more women in the population compared to men, like 52,
yeah,
48. So basically what we see now is there's actually no difference in usage of AI between men and women, where you're quite right. Early doors, it was 80% male. So who knows? But look, at the risk of digging ourselves into a hole on this conversation, I think the call outs are awareness for software developers like us to go, how are we treating gender both in the bots and how we use it, and are these really product features that we need, or are they really just marketing strategies to get our users to love our products? That's probably just one thing. I think, and I think the second element is around the responsible usage of AI and not over
yeah,
trusting our AI because it has human-like qualities. And that's the
yeah,
big one, I think, for professionals to call out. Thanks to all and so I should say, other than the feedback from the Finura team, 90% of the responses I got were from men who acknowledged, yeah, you're right, I hadn't noticed that before.
yeah,
Some CEOs, some large businesses, one CEO of a very large software company actually responded to me, which was really cool, and said, oh, gee, no one had really thought of this.
yeah,
So I didn't get heat for this, actually. I got more just like, gee, you're right. This has
yeah,
just slipped under our radar. And it's so interesting because we're so conscious now of gender and rightly so, but for some reason this has just slipped under the radar without us realizing. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's really sort of maybe embedded. I guess, that's just a thing that might change over time, but definitely made me think about things. So thank you for that.
yeah.
Any ideas what you're doing next?
Yeah, I got a couple this week. So as we record this, there's been a significant correction in SaaS valuations on the stock market. So all the big tech companies have been hit massively with share price corrections. There's a lot of panic about, is Claude and all these other businesses coming for their lunch, and is the SaaS model breaking because of AI? So I'm going to unpack that a little bit this week, and I'm going to pick on Xero, the accounting software, who did a pretty ordinary job, I must say, of trying to convince the market that they weren't ever going to be disrupted with AI. So that's what this week's writing's all about.
Oh, amazing. Can't wait. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Pete. That was a great conversation. Let's hope
Thanks,
we
Danny.
both don't get cancelled after that. Thanks for listening, guys, and we look forward to seeing you next time. That's it for this episode of the Wealth Tech Insider. If today's conversation got you thinking about your own technology setup, what's working, what's clunky, or what's quietly slowing things down, we've built a technology health check you can find on our website. It's a practical way to understand where you're at with tech and where it makes sense to focus without turning it into a major project straight away. If the episode was useful, feel free to share it or subscribe for future conversations, and thank you for listening.